Welcome to Work from the Inside Out, a podcast that highlights real-life stories, practical strategies, and best practices for transitioning your career from unhappiness and dissatisfaction to fulfillment, meaning, and joy. Now here is your host, career and executive coach, Tammy Guler-Loeb.
Hey everybody, I am so delighted to introduce my guest today, Erica Holthausen. Erica is the founder of Catchline Communications, a consulting firm that equips experts with the tools they need to develop a body of work that bolsters their credibility and earns them a reputation as authoritative experts. Drawing on her experience as a freelance writer and editor, she guides her clients through the process of pitching, writing, and publishing articles in industry trade journals and business magazines. Her clients have secured bylines in high visibility publications like Harvard Business Review, Inc., and Entrepreneur. Please join me in welcoming Erica Holthausen. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you, Tammy. It's so great to be here.
Well, and I appreciate you being here. You are joining us from your home office in New London, Connecticut. Is that right?
Yes. Home of the Coast Guard Academy.
There you go. And in fact, we had on the show the former head of the Coast Guard Academy, the first female head of any military academy in this country.
No kidding. That's fantastic. Excellent. I'll have to listen to that one.
She's amazing. Sandra Stoltz with a big title in front of her name, something like Vice Admiral, something. I'm not good with those military titles, but terrific, wonderful leader, human being. Really enjoyed talking with her. So anyway, let's talk about you. As you know, we love to go back in time, talk about the formative years and how those may or may not have informed where you are today. So take us back to some of those early years, Erica, and tell us how they got you to where you are now.
Yeah. I love this question because it's fun to kind of look at the thread that ties your life together.
Yeah.
And we'll sort of bump up a couple of times, but going way, way back, my grandfather was one of my biggest influences. When I was a little kid, I was very, very, very inquisitive. And not all adults had a lot of patience for my 10 billion questions, but my grandfather did. And one of the things that he always used to say to me is, well, I don't know, honey bunch, what do you think? So I would ask him these big, huge questions, and other adults either wouldn't take the time or thought, or at least conveyed, that they had the answer to that question. And he would have me think through it. And I loved everything about the conversations that we had. And that was one of the things that kind of influenced, and then reading A Man for All Seasons, the play, I decided to go to law school. And I wanted to be an attorney. I'd wanted to be an attorney from the time I was in middle school. I kind of made that decision, and I thought, wow, this is cool. Like, you get to explore all of these ideas and debate with each other. And that was very true of law school.
Right.
That was not true of being an attorney.
Yeah. It's, I love that you make that distinction. I remember way back, there was a snippet in time, maybe 30 seconds, when I thought about being an attorney, and someone said to me, don't go to law school unless you want to go to law school, because it has nothing to do with being an attorney.
Yeah. And for me, going to law school was fantastic.
Yeah.
Because I loved at one point I had debated whether I was going to go to law school or go to journalism school. And law school I loved because of that intelligent inquiry and that really looking into all of the facts and trying to build and bolster your argument. And I loved all of the thinky stuff that came with it.
Yeah.
Being a lawyer, different animal. You don't get to debate both sides. You are representing your client for better or for worse. And some of the clients were for worse. And it dawned on me then that it was like, this really was not my thing. But one of the things that I had learned through law school, I've always been a writer. I've always written in order to understand the world. So law school was no different. And I worked as a legal research and writing fellow while I was in law school. So that was something that I already loved. And it was one of those things that it was like, okay, my writing practice, I have done a free writing, basically a 10-minute free write every single morning for over a decade.
Wow.
And it ties right back to my grandfather, because it's me inquiring of myself, what do I actually believe? What do I actually think in this circumstance? And it took a long time for me to figure out what the next step would be after the law. So I lasted about a year and then was like, okay, I will either end up being here forever and being a miserable human being, or I'm going to jump ship now and kind of figure out what that next step is. And it took quite a while to figure out the next step. And oddly enough, so I was in marketing and advertising for a long time, but on the side of it, I was also doing some freelance writing and freelance editing.
Okay.
But I always considered that something on the side. And it took a very long time for me to finally own and be able to say, I'm a writer. Those simple words were really hard. And some of it was because, if you become a lawyer, so much of my identity was wrapped up in being an attorney. And I mean, I was 22. I didn't know anything. 21, 22. And, but that was sort of like, okay, this is who you are. And there's a lot of trappings that come with it.
Right. Well, and I think, growing up, many of us were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. And there's always like, well, a teacher, a firefighter, a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, this, right. And so we were taught to kind of create ourselves as adults to be something, when we'd hear maybe our parents or other adults talking about someone, oh, so-and-so, they are this. They didn't usually say, oh, so-and-so, oh, yeah, they're a good person. I mean, you hear that now.
Yeah, that is so true, though, because it's so much of it is around the what do you do, not who are you.
And I don't say that even as a criticism. I think it's natural that comes out because we spend so much time preparing for and then doing this thing we called work, right?
Yeah. There's just a balance. The balance is just a little off. It's a little too heavily skewed, or at least it has been. I think there's some shifts happening, but
oh yeah, I think so too. And I think also hiring decisions get made based on oftentimes who you are, not what you can do anyway, because there are so many people who have a resume filled with, what they can do. And so the choices come down to, well, is this the kind of person that we feel we can work with, or who will blend well in the kind of organization we are, the culture that we've established, whatever. So those things have become, I think, increasingly important. We're not just a function. We're a whole human being, you know?
Yeah.
But even to call yourself a writer is still kind of a thing in a way, although writer can mean so many different things. And so can lawyer, but it definitely conjures up different kinds of thoughts. I'm curious, that year that you were practicing law, what kinds of things might have swirled through your mind as you were thinking, if I don't get out now, it's going to be that much harder, or should I decide what else I'm going to do first before I get out? Because I know what you did was you left the practice of law and then gave yourself some time and space to figure things out. I've heard of other people who've left law, but they didn't leave after a year. They left after, multiple years, even decades, and they made themselves stay in it for a whole variety of, practical, financial reasons, all that. But I've also heard people say, well, I put so much into this. how can I just walk away from it, you know? And what it sounds like you did was you didn't just say, oh, I put so much into this, how can I walk away from it? It was more like, there's a lot I've gotten out of this. I don't have to walk away from all of it. I'm just walking away from the piece of it that doesn't work for me.
Yes, with hindsight as it is now.
Yes. Okay.
In the moment, it did not feel like that at all.
So what got you then to make that change at that time?
Yeah. So a couple of things that got me to kind of make that change is when I was in my third year of law school, I was doing a prosecution clinic, and the attorney who I worked with he was just an incredible prosecutor. He was kind. He looked at things very holistically. If you didn't have to, he was not just a punish everybody because you can punish everybody. Right. It was very much, how can I help this person get back on track if they just made a mistake? So he really thought about things from a different perspective, and I had so much respect for him.
Absolutely.
And when we broke from the first term to second term over the winter break, when I came back, he took me out to lunch and basically said that he was no longer going to be a prosecutor. He was opening a smaller practice. And what had happened over the break is his father had passed away, and his dad apologized to him for not spending more time with him when he was younger. And he realized that being a prosecutor, even in a relatively small town in central Virginia, he realized that this was taking up so much of his time, energy, and effort that he wasn't spending the time with the people who mattered most to him. So I had that context with somebody who I had incredible respect and admiration for because he was such an incredible attorney going into the law firm. And in the law firm, it was probably 6 months in or so, I came into the office one day, and my administrative assistant said, you're on a plane in an hour going to New York. And I was like, okay, that was not unusual for us. I was in securities litigation. But she then said, no, it's not like that. You're going to have to call your roommate and have her pack a bag. We don't know how long you're going to be there. And I and a partner traveled to New York, and this was the early aughts, so cell phones were bigger, and we're in the back of the cab going into the city from the airport, and the partner I was working with at the time was on the phone with his wife, apologizing because they weren't going to be able to spend, this was a last minute trip, they weren't going to be able to spend the weekend together. And I could hear the whole conversation because old cell phones. Right. And when he got off the phone, he just said, do you ever feel like you're missing anything? And I said, what do you mean? And he told me the whole story. And it turned out that his baby daughter had just said her first words that morning. And now he didn't know how long he was going to be gone. And that was one of the other things that kind of struck me with, okay, is this really worth it? Because it feels really powerful, but I'm in securities litigation. So, I'm defending like Fidelity. Like, they really don't need me. I'm not making a difference. There are 10 more people who can take my place. And the thing that was the straw that broke the camel's back is one of the partners from the white collar crimes division had asked me to put together a brief. I spent this was Friday at 5. This attorney says I need it by Monday. I worked the entire weekend putting this brief together, and it turned out that he had assigned the exact same thing to a more senior associate. And when I came home and complained about that to my roommate, she was working at Lesley University at the time. That weekend, she brought home a pamphlet about the Audobon Expedition Institute and jokingly said, well, you could always sign up for something like this. And I did. I told nobody, but I applied for this program. It was an environmental studies program, a combination of undergraduate and graduate students. And the idea of just getting back into nature and figuring out, okay, this is clearly not my jam. but what the heck is, because I have thought that this was what I wanted to do from the time I was in middle school.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You had almost like brainwashed yourself in some ways, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there was not a small amount of, biting off your nose to spite your face, because I had people who said, "You going to law school?" And I was like, "Oh, you watch. Like, now I am definitely going."
Yeah, now I'm going to show you. And so you applied to this institute, and what happened? What occurred? I mean, I know you got in, but what happened in terms of your own mindset around that, and how you made decisions to go ahead and walk away or take a leave, or however you handled that?
The getting in suddenly made it real. I kind of didn't expect to. It was sort of oh, I'll do this. And then I've done like the good faith effort, and I've tried to figure out what to do next, because responsible people don't just leave a job with nothing else.
Right.
With nothing else there is what was going through my mind. And how in the world would you leave a job that pays so well when you have this much student loan debt? So for me, I'll just get more education, because that's sort of my default answer.
There's a lot of people who use that default, even with the cost of education. They still do it
because it's fun. Like, I will learn things forever. So when it was suddenly real, I had to really think about, am I going to do this? So I ended up going to one of the partners at the law firm, super kind man named David Bach. And I came into his office and shut the door, which was like an immediate sign to him, like, oh, this is serious. So I shut the door and sat down, told him the whole thing, and that I wasn't sure what to do. And his advice back to me was, if you are thinking of leaving, do it now. The golden handcuffs get very tight very quickly. And that made the decision for me. Because it was such a, he shared some of his story with different things, and how, he had a wife, they had 2 kids, they had a 3rd kid on the way. Like, once you have all of that, you now are thinking about a lot more than yourself. I was just me, single, no kids. Like, I could make these types of decisions because the impact was pretty much restricted to me, I, and myself. Right. So when he said that, I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And then as we told folks, it was fascinating how many people came out of the woodwork, people who I thought were like an attorney's attorney, like one of the other partners who I absolutely adored. And he was just like, somebody very dear to me once told me there's more to life than defending poor behavior. And I wish I had listened to her. And I almost fell out of my chair. Once the decision was made, it kept being sort of reinforced. Like, yes, if this is not where you want to be, and you can do something, you can leave because you don't have all of these familial obligations and other things that are holding you there, do it.
And it's interesting though to have all these other people around you telling you to do it, and these are all intelligent, creative,
lawyers. It was all the lawyers who were telling me to do it. It was other people, friends and family, who were like, "You're nuts. How could you possibly?" Right.
And I'm wondering if almost like, you do it because I can't kind of thing, right? And yet, who's to say that they could not? It was maybe an easier yes for you because you didn't have other people counting on you at that time, or at least people you didn't know about. Maybe some of your family members were going, "Oh no, who's going to take care of me down the road?" But still, I can see where I know what I was going to ask you was there a thought in your mind that there was no turning back from this? Or was it, I can go do this, and if I choose, I can still return to the law if I want to in some way? It doesn't have to be in the way I've been doing it either. I could return to some other type of law or develop something else. It wasn't like I was shutting this door completely and, ruling out this option. I'm just making a pivot at this time. I'm curious how you were thinking about it, at least.
Yeah. And so I did know that was an opportunity, that I could decide, yes, I'm going to stay in law, but maybe it's going to be in a different practice, in a different sized firm, with a different focus, any of those different things. I didn't know that shift would matter to me, if it would be a big enough shift for me to make. I had done some work, doing a lot of pro bono work, and God bless the pro bono folks and the folks who work for Social Security Administration. And that is hard, thankless labor. And I don't have the constitution for it. So a big part of it was also, what works for you? How are you hardwired? What would this look like if you were doing something else? The idea of working for a smaller firm, potentially fewer hours, but I was like, okay, but I don't like, what I loved about the firm I had worked with was everything was an intellectual challenge. And I loved that part. So the intellectual challenge part, I loved. Opposing counsel and clients, I could do without.
Yeah.
So a smaller firm wasn't going to was going to take away the thing that I loved most, and add more of the thing that I wasn't so into.
Yeah. But you didn't even have to make that decision at that point in time, right? You just needed to take your leave and go to the Audobon Institute.
Yeah, right? I basically needed to take a few months of just living in a school bus and a tent in Colorado, which is what that ended up being.
So take us there for a moment. This big departure from suits and courtrooms and litigation and all that to living in a bus in Colorado.
Yeah, it was. So first there was like the great downsizing. So all of my suits I donated to Dress for Success. I got rid of pretty much everything that I owned, because I knew for as long as I was in this program, I had to carry everything I owned on my back in a backpack. And there was something incredibly freeing about having effectively zero belongings. Carrying your entire world on your back.
Yeah.
It was such a different experience. And that was something that I really loved, because it gave me time to think, time to be. I got up and went to sleep with the sun. So as we got into winter, I was like in bed and out cold by 7 p.m. And I was like, this is great. So it was really getting just in tune with a completely different way, and figuring out, okay, what do I want to do with all of this? What am I possibly going to do now that the thing I've always wanted to do isn't it? And I ended up thinking a lot about jobs that I had and work that I had done that I really loved. So before I had gone to law school, I worked at the International IACP, International Association of Chiefs of Police, outside of Washington, D.C. I was a researcher. I loved that job. So one of the things I thought about was, research could be a really interesting thing, something where I can get that intellectual challenge, get the research and writing, continue doing all of that. But Boston is tough. Research jobs are tough. If your research jobs are primarily in college towns, and why hire somebody who actually needs to make a living when you can hire a grad student and feed them ramen noodles?
Exactly.
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So when I left the Audubon Expedition Institute when my great uncle passed away, and I came back to Massachusetts to help my aunt kind of navigate all of that and to figure out, okay, what are my next steps? And that's when I started to look at the research jobs and realize, okay, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I expanded, okay, what might work? And ended up working in the nonprofit sector for a startup arts organization as their development and marketing director. I knew nothing about marketing. I knew nothing about development. But the woman who hired me had decided, you know what? As an attorney, you can figure it out. These are skills that you can learn. So she took a chance on me. And it was there that I met some of my first mentors in that space and got a much better handle on how to do that.
Yeah.
Ultimately ended up working with a consultant who was a capital campaign consultant. And we had a great division of labor because she did all the stuff I didn't want to do. And I got to research stuff and write stuff and put together case studies and grant proposals and do all of that. So it was a very interesting path that happened.
Yeah.
And
well, it sounds very, in a way, even though it might not all make sense in some ways on paper, the way you tell the story, it sounds very sort of evolutionary. And yet I'm wondering, there you are still in your 20s, at least through some of that, right? And I'm thinking about how many of us were in our 20s. We were trying to figure out, even if we knew exactly what we wanted to do, there was still that part of us still trying to figure out who am I, right? And I think that was part of what you were going through is who do I want to be? Who am I? And I'm wondering, and yet the way you're telling the story, it all sounds like you were very kind to yourself in the process, or very easy on yourself as you went through it. And I'm wondering if there was something else going on for you as you were making these decisions and trying to decide what you wanted and taking some risks. We should also say that the Audubon Institute was something you went into, but you didn't complete it. You decided to, that wasn't something you wanted to pursue further. So there was another decision point, right? Where it's like, okay, I've tried this. This isn't it either. And I get the feeling that there's just no regrets about any of this. It's not about regret, but it's more about how did you navigate your psyche, so to speak, each time you tried something and then said, oh, this isn't it either.
Yeah.
What else? And I'm wondering how did you manage all of that psychologically, I guess?
Not well in the moment.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about that if you don't mind, because the way you're telling the story, it sounds so like you were just this like level-headed person who just said, okay, that's not working. I think I'll try this. I think I'll try that. And it's like, yeah, I remember what it was like to be in my 20s. I when I made some decisions, there was some angst around it, but I'm glad I did what I did, kind of thing. In 2020, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is all, again, with that hindsight and having ultimately landed not until my 40s into the space where I do feel like this is where I am meant to be. Looking back, I can now construct, human beings are meaning makers, right? So I can now construct, here's how these led to these different things. Here's how it works. In the moment and at the time, I felt horrible. I felt like the biggest loser in the world. I felt like I didn't have my act together. I felt like I had done all the right things, checked all the right boxes, and how come my life was not working out
the way it was supposed to, right? If you did all those things.
Yeah.
Right?
My sister got married during that time. She's younger than me. So that came into play. Both of my cousins, who I am very close to, were established in their careers during that time. So all of that was happening. And I felt very much like the odd woman out. like somebody who just, what was wrong with me? Why couldn't I just do X?
Or just be satisfied with what I
Yeah.
had, kind of thing. Because I would imagine that some of those other people in your life probably were also not quite content with all the choices and the things they were doing, but they stayed with it, just like some of your law colleagues did,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And yet you had the wherewithal, or whatever the right word is, to say, I need something else, and I'll go through the painful steps to figure it out.
Yeah. And there have been a lot of times over the course of my life where I have just said, I just wish that I was hardwired differently. I wish I could just get a regular job job.
Yeah.
Do it, earn an income, have paid vacation, be pretty much most of the other folks who are in my orbit. But I'm not hardwired that way.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to really realize that, and then to figure out the way, it's all well and good to be like, well, I'm going to follow my bliss. Well, that's great, but your bliss does not pay your bills.
Right.
So
right.
Navigating that and figuring out how do you live in this real world when you are also looking for work that fully nourishes who you are.
Yeah.
And
that's the $1 million, or in this day and age, the multi-million-dollar question, right? How do you do that? And I think some people don't give themselves the space to try to answer that question.
Yeah.
Because they have so many other things they're trying to take care of. They just can't create the space. I mean, there are some people who do create the space for that, no matter how many other people they're taking care of. And it is possible to do that, to find that, right?
Yes.
But it definitely takes you have to sort of slow your mind and your spirit down enough, I think, to really say, okay, I'm going to figure it out. It might take some time, though. It's going to take some time. I also think that, when you say it took me till my 40s, whatever, to really land in that right place, that right place might not have been that right place for you when you were 25, 26.
Right.
Right. So I too, went through a number of iterations career-wise, and all good choices along the way, and yet landed around age 40 in a place where I know it was like, I've arrived. This is it.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have arrived there a whole lot sooner and said the same thing, because I wasn't quite ready for that yet. So there's all that discovery process along the way that really had to happen in one way or another in order to get to that aha place, right?
And I don't think that there are any shortcuts. I wish there were. But I think the only way out is through, and it's going through that muck, and then it's like, from all of that, you can choose to learn lessons from all of that. Some people choose not to, but you can choose to learn from all of that and get closer and closer and closer.
And it wasn't all muck either. I mean, I love some of the stories you're telling about some of the colleagues you had at the law firm. So even though you found yourself not really wanting to stay in that line of work, there were clearly some key relationships there and people there whose insights and whose wisdom you gained a lot from, and who you had a lot of respect for. And so there was the muck part of it that you experienced, which is the difficult part, but there were also some gifts that you took away as well, it sounds like.
100%. And that was one thing that has been a consistent theme. I have always had, I don't know that I called them this in the moment, but I've always had mentors.
Yes.
And that has always helped lead me to things that it's like, because as somebody who is not you, but who is a mentor and does take an interest in you, can see can see in you stuff that you can't see in yourself because you have the blind spots of that fear of, oh my gosh, why can't I just be like everybody else? You have those blind spots and you have the blind spots of like, maybe I can't do this. What makes me think I can do this? And they can see that and help sort of cheer you on and give you the tools. And consistently throughout my career in all of its different manifestations, I have had those folks.
Yeah. Yeah. And you've opened yourself up to that too.
Yes.
I think that that's key to having those relationships. They're not going to just show up on your doorstep. You really have to engage with people in different ways, sometimes even ask for help, or seek out advice. And then sometimes even be as obvious as saying to somebody, would you be willing to be my mentor? And really set that relationship up very, very intentionally too. But I think that is key for a lot of people, because I think sometimes people think they're going to get all of that from one place or from their boss or from somebody else in their organization. And I think there's a lot of value in getting that outside your organization, even outside your profession, and getting those other perspectives. And you had a chance to do that, both by keeping open to that, but also by making a variety of choices over the years. Even though there was some muck in there, there were some gold nuggets in there too, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so as you moved through these things and you came close to your 40s, what were some of the transition points that got you to where you are today and what you're doing today?
Yeah. So I was in marketing and advertising for a long time, mostly content marketing and copywriting and some ghostwriting. And it was all around writing.
And were you working for an organization doing that, or were you doing that freelance, or how was that set up for you?
Sort of all of the above. So I started in the nonprofit sector and I was the development and marketing director, a lot of writing with grants and that kind of thing. Ended up working for the consulting firm.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Also doing a lot of writing for case studies and grant applications again there. Ended up working for one of our clients, one of the consulting firm's clients, which was a museum up in York, Maine. And again, marketing and development. So was doing a lot of that work. Loved elements of it. Loved the writing elements of it. I am not the world's best marketer. I'm not a great copywriter. It's not something that I'm super good at. I'm a very good long form writer, but copywriters are such a unique and special breed of human. And when I ended up in, I had my own business for a while. This is the second time I've had my own business, and was doing marketing for small businesses, and fell in love with teeny tiny businesses. But that ends up being really hard because they have teeny tiny budgets. And then 7 years later, I was a burned out teeny tiny business owner. And went back to work for somebody else. This was somebody who I'd known for a long time, and that was in the advertising world. So again, I was doing some of the copywriting and that kind of thing. Knew it was not. What I loved about that job is I was able to help somebody who I really respected build her business. And that was a lot of fun. I also get very bored very easily if I have just one hat to wear. So the bigger a business grows, the more I'm like, yeah, peace out, I'm gone. Because I need a lot of hats. Otherwise I get bored. So I was there for a few years, knew that I was going to, knew that that was a short-term thing, and needed to decide, okay, what's next? And when I started on my own at, the worst possible time, January 2020. I originally thought, okay, content marketing is what I've done. I can help people with that. And ended up working with a business coach. And we're on a call and I just said, oh, I'm so over marketing. And he was like, well, that's a problem. And I said, yeah, it is. And he asked me about a project that I had worked on that I really loved. And I had several years before worked with an environmental health and safety management consultant. And at the time, I had a friend who was an editor for EHS Today, which is a trade journal for that industry. And my editor friend was looking for writers. And I was like, I've got the perfect client. And everything about that project I loved. And so my business coach was like, oh, okay, so you did that. How did you know this editor friend? And I said, oh, well, I've been a freelance writer and editor for over 15 years, always on the side. And he's like, I had no idea. And he's like, so why don't you do that? And I looked at him and said, well, why don't I do what? And then he kind of spelled it out a little bit. Light dawned on Marblehead. I spoke to some of my colleagues in the editing world and started to speak to some consultant friends and realized, oh, this is something that could be very valuable. The way the magazine world has changed, with the internet, has opened a lot of opportunities for experts to write for these publications that have an established audience. So once I realized, oh, this is a real thing that I could actually do, I pivoted to what I do now. And that was about 6 months after I started Catchline.
So tell us what it is that evolved to and what it looks like today, and how people can learn more about you and what you do.
Yeah. So when I started, I worked solely one-on-one with my clients and sort of consulted and walked them through things, also serving as sort of a thought partner and an editor. And more recently, so 2 years ago now, what are we, 2023? So at the end of 2021, I started working with another coach to help me create a group cohort program.
Ooh.
And launch that in 2022. So I get to take 10 people through, well, a maximum of 10 people through the entire process, from how do you select the right publication, which means what are your business goals? Why do you even want to write for publications? What are you hoping that this will do for your business? When you know what those goals are, that serves as a filter to help you figure out which of the publications you should go after.
I see.
And then what are you going to write about? What is the reputation that you are trying to build? One of the conversations I had with an editor at Inc. said, we love getting experts to write for us, but typically we end up getting people who write 3 articles and then they fall off the face of the planet. Usually that's because they haven't planned out an editorial calendar. What are all the different things that they can talk about? So we walk through that entire process and set up an editorial calendar and figure out, what really is going to be the messaging that you are getting out there, the ideas that you are getting out there. Then we talk about writing and editing. How do you become a better, faster writer? How do you structure an article for publication? Then we talk about the pitch, how you actually structure the pitch, how you manage a relationship with an editor if the publication has an individual editor that you work with. And then it's all about, all right, now this article has been published. What are you going to do with it? Because just because it's published does not mean that the hordes of humans come knocking down your door.
Right. So that's where the marketing hat comes on a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. How can you use this as an appreciating asset to accomplish the business goals we talked about right at the beginning? So whether it is, you want to get more speaking engagements, or you want to be able to interview other leaders in your industry, or you want to be able to connect with prospective clients and you have an idea of exactly who they are and what their challenges are. How can you use that article to accomplish those goals?
Wow, that's terrific, because I think you've nailed something here. I have a lot of colleagues who are writing for those publications. But I think that there are some points where they're so busy trying to get their foot in the door with an editor and get an idea on the table. They're not thinking more long-term beyond what happens beyond the article getting published.
Right.
And how to really turn this into something that's really going to support their brand, really, their brand and their message and their business and what good they're trying to do in the world, of course.
Right.
So it sounds like the work that you're doing, it sounds like you're doing work both with groups, but also work with people individually on these things.
Yep. I have, so my sort of 3 programs, I have what I call the Credibility Catalyst. It's a series of 5 standalone workshops. So some people don't need the whole 6-month thing, which it took me a long time to realize, like, oh, maybe having something, as a good little introduction is helpful. Those are standalone workshops that tackle each of those 5 primary areas. And then Pathway to Publication is the 6-month group program.
I see. Okay.
A lot of hands-on. We meet every week for the first 3 months, and then everybody gets 3 one-to-one strategy sessions with me, and I can review your pitch, your articles, like the whole shebang. So there's that, which is a bigger investment of time, energy, and effort. And then there's one-to-one work. Most of the clients who I work with one-to-one have gone through either the workshops or the group program, but not necessarily. I have a couple who I've been working with since before I had the group program.
And so most of these people are trying to really, I'm guessing, are more entrepreneurs, people who are trying to develop their thought leadership and they may already have a brand, but they're trying to really get it to be more visible out there.
Yeah. It's primarily consultants, and they're established and they have strong ideas and a strong point of view and perspective that they want to get out there, and that helps differentiate them from other consultants who are working in a similar field.
Right. Wow. Ooh.
Yeah. In part because these publications, somebody has vetted you.
Right.
And somebody has said, oh, Tammy has something that our readers should hear. She is worth listening to. And that's one of the big benefits of article writing, is that it comes with that extra layer of social proof.
Right. Absolutely. I love that. So how can people get a hold of you, find you, learn more about what you offer, or just learn from your general basket of wisdom?
Well, my website is simple. It's catchlinecommunications.com. I am also very active on LinkedIn. It is my one and only social media platform. So you are welcome to connect with me there and say hello. And I do a monthly Q&A every month on the second Wednesday.
Nice.
I do a little training. It's just 1 hour. I do a mini training on a specific topic. And then I just open the floor to whatever questions folks
And so
have.
that just open to anybody?
Yep, that's open to anybody.
And I bet that's probably posted in LinkedIn and on your website and everything.
Yes.
So we'll have all of that in the show notes. So in wrapping up this lovely conversation, you've been through obviously many twists and turns and tried a lot of different things and made transitions. What would be a key piece of advice that you would give somebody else as they're thinking about what's next for them?
I think there are 2 things. I'm so bad at following directions.
That's
so there
all
are
right.
2 things that I think, looking back, were the most critical. The first was follow your curiosity. If you're curious about something, give it a whirl and see what it feels like. See what's going on there. Ask questions. People generally like to be helpful.
Yes.
So, ask the questions and use, if you're new to something, use that as like, hey, I'm brand new to this, because then that gives folks the opportunity to really share their wisdom, and you can learn so much in a very quick period of time.
Yeah, I love that advice. I just have to piggyback on that for a moment, because I think sometimes people think that they have to take a deep dive into something by doing that, when in fact, all you're suggesting is that just get some more information and then see how it sits with you.
Yeah.
you don't have to do more with it if you don't want to. But it's not like going from nothing to everything. It's just learn more about it and
Let
then
it be an
test the waters.
experiment.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. And the second thing that's related to that first is find your supporters.
Yes.
And, you know, if you have a spouse, certainly, or a partner, certainly bring them into this conversation. Your parents may not be the best supporters.
Yeah.
Siblings
Yeah.
may not be the best supporters,
Mhm.
but people who you start to ask, oh, you do this thing. Tell me more about it. What does it feel like? Those informational interviews. Find those supporters, whether they are mentors, friends, partners, because you also need that, because it can be a really hard road.
Yeah.
Because it's breaking a lot of societal expectations. It's breaking a lot of the, stories that we have been told all our lives about, especially if you're of a certain age. And, with my parents, it was basically like you get a job and you work at that same place until you're dead.
Right. Or until you retire.
Right. And that's not really that. It's such a different world now. But if
it is.
Were brought up with that messaging,
right.
Leaving can be really scary.
Yeah. No, it can be. And it's a big decision and it's very hard to do. And yet, what I also will say to people is lots of people have done it and they live to tell about it. And many of them live to tell about it in a way where they're really happy they did it.
Yeah.
But people are often afraid that they're making a big mistake, and the thing is staying where you are, really the answer,
Yeah.
So,
and mistakes are human. Like, go make a mistake, make a big mistake. How you handle it is what matters, not that you made it.
That's right. Oh, I love that. That's great. Oh my goodness. This has been so, it just feels like such a full and holistic conversation. I really appreciate your time, Erica.
Oh,
and
such a pleasure.
I encourage people to check you out at Catchline Communications and to really heed a lot of the lessons learned from Erica's story. So thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Erica Holthausen. It was so interesting to speak with her and learn about her earlier life, her variety of transitions, and her current work. What is your key takeaway from our interview? If you are interested in any of the resources mentioned in today's podcast, you can find them in the show notes on my website at tammygoulerloeb.com/podcast. Just look for episode 233. Are you anticipating your next professional move? Check out my award-winning book, Work from the Inside Out, Break Through 9 Common Obstacles and Design a Career That Fulfills You. It's available through my website, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and independent bookstores, or through your local library. Just ask your library to buy a copy of it. If you are inspired by this episode with Erica, please share it with your friends and colleagues, and please do subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, subscribing is always free. If you're enjoying the podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would write a brief and honest review on Apple Podcasts. All you need to do is go to my website, tammygoulerloeb.com/podcast, click the link near the Apple Podcast button, and follow the instructions provided there. You can also help and sustain this podcast by buying me a cup of coffee. Go to buymeacoffee.com/TammyGL. Since this podcast is self-funded, your support is acknowledged and appreciated. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, it's never too late or too impossible to increase your sense of fulfillment and satisfaction in your work and other meaningful activities. Let me know how it's going for you. I'd love to hear from you. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to the Work from the Inside Out podcast. For more information, You can find us at www.workfromtheinsideout.com.